answer in a perfect dream.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Starfish Speaks on WERE 1490. Today I have the pleasure of sharing the journey of one of our starfish families with you. We hope you'll join us in our discussion today by calling 216-578-1490. Remember, one of our lucky callers has a chance to win a gift card. So, I'm Donna Gilcher, and my co-host today is Helen Maynard.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Sorry, car broke down, but
no worries. We're looking forward to talking to.
we look at it as Starfish's gift.
Oh, I see.
So, today our guests are Justina Bernhardt, a mother of 7 children with her high school sweetheart, Lance, 3 of which have significant disabilities. Their 27-year-old son has quadriplegic cerebral palsy, and their 10-year-old daughter and 14-year-old son have Sanfilippo syndrome, a genetic degenerative disorder. She and Lance have been residents of the Whitehall School District in Michigan all their lives and are proud graduates of Whitehall schools. She's been an advocate for children with disabilities for more than 24 years, fighting for her first child with a severe physical disability just to be admitted to his local school as he entered kindergarten. He attended Whitehall schools until he graduated from high school. She daily tries to find joy in the simple things, routine pleasures such as cooking, motherhood, home design, and special moments with her family. Welcome, Justine. Are you on the phone with us?
Other intro.
Oh, we're waiting for her to get connected with us. Our second guest today is Myra Dutton. She's an attorney and advocate for students with disabilities in various educational settings since 1998, working endlessly to ensure that each student is getting services and supports needed to achieve his or her maximum educational potential in the least restrictive environment. She provides training and information to education professionals, parents, advocates, and the medical community, and others about legal issues in public education. She has 3 grown children and 3 grandchildren, enjoys teaching at Baker College in Michigan, reading, writing, and being outdoors with her family. Welcome, Myra and Justine. Are you there?
Hi, Donna. This is Myra. Hi, it's Justina. We're here.
Hey there. We're so glad to have you guys today. For those of
Thank you.
This is the modern technology. I'm so excited about this, that we can do this. So Helen and I are in Cleveland, and Myra and Justina are in Michigan. And we all sound like we're on the same show. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah. So we're really happy. And for those of you joining us, I need to disclose that Starfish families, and let you know, the Starfish families across the country have been following your case, Justina, and praying for Anna to remain in school. For those that are not familiar with Anna's disorder, she has Sanfilippo syndrome, otherwise known as, and Justina, if I mess it up, help me out, mucopolysaccharidosis, which is a rare degenerative genetic disorder in which the body's missing or doesn't have enough of a certain enzyme needed to break down long chains of sugar molecules. As a result, the molecules build up in different parts of the body and cause the cells to explode, causing various health problems. Unfortunately, many families don't know that they are carriers of the genetic disorder until they have a child diagnosed. The child may have normal growth during the first few years with a decline in learning ability, typically beginning between the ages of 2 and 6. Unfortunately,
that sums it up well, yes.
Yep. Unfortunately, there's significant nervous system symptoms, including severe intellectual disability, and most people with MPS 3 live into their teenage years, and unfortunately, disease is fatal. People often refer to the disease as a childhood Alzheimer's, as the symptoms of decline are very similar. Justina, would you be willing to share with our listeners how Sanfilippo syndrome has manifested in Anna?
Yes, yep. Anna appeared to be a perfectly normal child, as most Sanfilippo babies do. She grew, she met her milestones, she learned to walk and crawl and talk, She entered kindergarten, went to preschool, entered kindergarten, was learning her ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Although at that point in kindergarten, you could tell there was something a little different about her. The principal of her school remembers enrolling her, and he said, when I enrolled her, I could walk in that room, and I could not tell the difference between her and her peers. She was functioning at a kindergarten level, could identify most letters, the sounds, and then shortly thereafter, by the end of kindergarten to first grade, is when the symptoms really started to show with her disease.
Right. So what were some of the symptoms that she started having?
The symptoms that she had appeared to be, I hate to use the word behavioral, but that makes most people understand what we're talking about. They are symptoms of dementia, where nervous anxiety, starting to do some things that just didn't add up. When she was startled or alarmed, she'd run away from her mother rather than towards her mother. Like she couldn't sort out where safety was. It created a great anxiety in her. Sanfilippo syndrome is neurologically degenerative. So all of those brain signals start to get scrambled, start to get messed up. And as her brain continues to deteriorate, you see more and more of that. They have a great amount of swelling of the brain because, like you said earlier, the cells cannot get rid of the waste in the brain tissue. And so those cells become larger and larger and swell until they expand and burst. And that is how the brain injury occurs. Each Sanfilippo child is different, of course, but they're all very similar in the way the progression of the disease exhibits.
Were there any other physical symptoms that she have? I know some Sanfilippo children will have chronic diarrhea or sleep difficulties or stiff joints.
She got that later. Sleep difficulties for sure. Before she was diagnosed, she had what we would describe as night terrors, which are very different than nightmares. But if you look up night terrors, that's what she had. She would wake up very confused, not knowing where she's at, not knowing who I was, and then would come around to lucidity in a short period of time. So night terrors, and then the diarrhea for her started later. That is a symptom of the mucopolysaccharidosis, and all Sanfilippo kids wind up with that. Not all on the same timetable, but they all wind up with that. And she was an easier read, I guess I should say, because she has an older brother who's 4 years older than her, and we were already taking him everywhere, trying to get him diagnosed. And one day it just hit me that whatever he has, she has. Right. And I knew it was degenerative, but at the time you think, okay, as soon as we figure out what this is, we'll be able to fix it. So she, she kind of had, she might have taken a little longer to diagnose had we not had an older son that's going down the same pathway ahead of her. Right.
So I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share with all of our listeners how it feels to be a parent that's having to fight for their child just to be included in school, where at the same time you're really having to fight for their life.
Well, it's disappointing because you just kind of expect that the community is going to rally around you and the school system is going to be supportive. You would think that they would look at your family as well. This family has 2 children that have a terminal illness. How can we best support them? And when you kind of get the news that they were working to move her out of the district, the only words that come to mind is disappointed. We were just greatly disappointed that that's the path that they were choosing. And really, as a parent of 2 terminally ill children, I would like to focus my energy and on trying to bring in and secure treatment. Right now there is no approved treatment, no cure for Sanfilippo syndrome. We also have a set of twins that are 6 years old that affects them with their siblings. We have an older child with cerebral palsy that's 27 and has needs for all activities of daily living. So our hands are full. We've been in this district for 22 years. My older son went through this school. So all I can say is disappointing. It's very disappointing. A lot of districts rally around other Sanfilippo families. They do fundraisers. They raise money. They donate it to the Sanfilippo organizations. They're happy to include them. And so it was disappointing.
I think it's important to know that and to notice that, Whitehall School District is a small school district.
Yes.
It's not a huge one, and a lot of the families are families that have been there for generations. Am I correct?
That's correct. I graduated from that school, so did my husband, so did his dad, so did two of Anna's siblings have gone through that school and graduated. I mean, that would be our community school, our old alma mater. That's family to us.
Right. So I want us to turn to Myra. She was the attorney that helped us win this case, and we're so eternally grateful. So I'm wondering if, Myra, can you give us the basic elements of the case?
Well, when you're looking at a case that involves keeping a student in their district, you're looking at two different things, of course, under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Every child is entitled to a free, appropriate public education, but they're also entitled to an education that is provided to them in the least restrictive environment. So when we look at those two kind of contiguous parts of the law, we kind of have to look at them together. And I had to really make sure that the hearing officer kept in mind that those two things came together. The free, appropriate public education part of it was a little bit different in this case, and I acknowledged that, I think, throughout the trial. Because generally, in order to determine appropriateness, you're looking at whether the child is able to reasonably progress in light of their specific circumstances. Well,
Right.
as you know from talking a little bit about this particular disability, progress is not something that we will ever have as a measure of appropriateness.
Right.
And I think that the hearing officer did a very good job of figuring out that what we needed to do here in order to determine appropriateness was look at not progress per se, but skill maintenance. And he fully acknowledged in his order that even in that case, we were still going to see regression. Our goal is skill maintenance, but there will be regression. And so it was really a matter of just educating this hearing officer pretty quickly about what progress looks like for a child with this condition.
So to backtrack just a little bit, what was happening in the school's mind was, Anna was in school for a while. To how many grades? How many years before?
4 years.
4 years.
So 4 years, yeah.
4. So they took this position after they felt she was no longer progressing. She was not benefiting from the curriculum. She wasn't making progress or maintaining skills in her current setting. That was the concern of the school. Is that correct?
That was the argument that they made.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for parents who have students where a school district is trying to say, okay, you can't be anymore, it's about the standard. What is progress, correct? So what is progress when you have a student who is not able to participate in the curriculum?
Or to make progress.
To make progress in the curriculum.
Right. I mean, ordinarily you would look at things like whether they are able to progress in the curriculum that's provided to them. Are they gaining skills? Are they meeting their goals and objectives?
Right.
Really, are they going forward? That is typically what we look at. And this was a whole new kind of case for me because that is the standard that I was used to. Okay, we've got to show how she's going forward. Well, in this case, like I said, we were at a different level of disability with a different kind of progress that we were looking at.
And just Helen, in Anna's case, she has a pretty steep decline. So I mean, I was able to graph a pretty steep decline that she's been having. So we could see the illness progressing. And Helen's not an educator and a special educator. Most families, and Myra, you can back me up on this, most families actually end up going to due process to get a district to place their child out of district. So the other difference is this family wanted to keep their child in the school district, keep her with her familiar surroundings. And I think, I always use the word dignity, allowing her the dignity to remain in her community. And I heard Justina say that at one. So here's a question. I know that the district, they took that position that she could not work in the Common Core. And I read that lots through the transcript and of all of the testimony and stuff, and that was why she needed to go to a special education only school. And a couple times they even cited the Andrew versus Douglas case that requires schools now to, which we are so thrilled about in special education, to ensure substantive growth and progress. So here's a question. Should the measure of a student being able to stay in their home district be one of, can you access Common Core?
No, and I think the hearing officer did a very good job of citing to the law in that respect. You know, the Code of Federal Regulations that implement the idea is pretty clear that a need to modify the curriculum is not in and of itself enough evidence to support moving a child out of their neighborhood school. He really focused in on that, and I think that, I was happy to see that he seemed very familiar with that. The other part of that, you know, when I read the Andrew decision, and I think I mentioned this at a training that I first met Justina at, I was a little concerned. I knew that it could be a double-edged sword for us in a least restrictive environment case, because these are hard cases to win generally. You know, showing that our students are entitled to be in their general ed setting is a case that is difficult at times. And so while it's good to have a more definite standard about what is progress, especially for our kids with learning disabilities or, you know, some of the milder intellectual disabilities, I think it's much better to have that clearer standard. For some of our kids who have more severe intellectual disabilities, it also could be used to show that, oh, the student is not doing what they need to do, and kind of be used as a tool to get them into a specialized school, which that's something that I have to fight against in a lot of these least restrictive environment cases. I actually have had a lot more parents fight to get their kids to stay in their regular school district than I have ever had to get them out into a special school. Schools are generally pretty quick and pretty happy to put their students who are presenting with more challenging symptoms out into another environment and kind of offload those onto somebody else to deal with. So I tend to have a harder time keeping kids in their district in this state, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents, I think this is going to be an issue. I think this is going to be a new issue. All right. We have Susan on line 1. Welcome, Susan, to the show.
Hello there. I have followed this story with great interest, and it's got to be one of the most painful situations for a family to be in. Congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
Now, this seems to me that this is a beautiful opportunity for Anna's classmates to better understand and learn some extraordinarily painful and difficult issues such as death and dying and empathy, and also an opportunity for them to understand and learn about grief and beneficial ways of expressing that grief. So I wonder, are there any educational programs in place currently in Anna's school, and particularly in her classes, that will help her classmates to navigate all of these issues that they're inevitably going to learn and hopefully discuss with their moms and dads at home. But any kind of educational programs that are already in place, and if not, what would you like such a program, Justina? What would you like such a program to look like? What kinds of things would you think would be beneficial to help help Anna's classmates. And I would think that this would also help Anna, too. And I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.
Great. So, Justina, if you'll give us 1 second, I'm going to have you think about it because we've got to go to break. And
Okay.
so as soon as we come back to break, if you could share that, it would be great.
You
You going to break?
That's why.
Don't miss the Tom Joyner Morning Show.
Sybil, some kids are trying hard to get on Santa's good list.
Oh, yeah?
A 9-year-old boy told his mom his bad report card was fake news. On Monday, Skip Murphy's in the big chair with co-host Jackie Reed and our man Godfrey in the funny chair. All that and more, the next TJMS.
The Tom Joyner Morning Show, tomorrow morning from 6 till 9 a.m. on News Talk 1490 WERE and streaming live at blackplanetradio.com.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, the IRS just hired 4 giant private collection agencies to track down folks who owe the IRS. So if you think dodging them was stressful in the past, it's going to get a whole lot tougher. Optima Tax Relief has this advice. Don't wait. Solve your tax problems now, before it's too late. Optima works to stop the demand letters, stop the aggressive collection actions, and stop the IRS collection agencies from targeting you. Ask Optima about the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands, and nobody knows this program better than they do. Optima is A-rated with the Better Business Bureau, and they get results, having resolved over $500 million in tax debt for their clients. Get a fresh start. Call today for your free consultation.
Call 800-279-6822. 800-279-6822. 800-279-6822.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Visit NewsTalkCleveland.com to sign up for the One VIP card from American Express Serve. Get free early direct deposit, ATM use, and online bill payment. Your money matters.
Welcome back. We're at Starfish Speaks this afternoon. I'm Helen Maynard, sitting in with Donna Gilcher. And if you were with us before the break, we were just talking a little bit about the case out of Whitehall, Michigan, with a young woman who wanted to continue to go to her elementary school in a school district that wasn't going to have it. And the parents have fought back and won. They're a Starfish family. So
Yep, they're a Starfish family. And when we left, Susan had called in and posed a great question. So, Justina, what's going on with the school now? Is there a program to help educate about the disabilities and the disorder for her classmates, Anna's classmates?
Well, first of all, thank you, Susan, for such a great question. I love people who get right to the heart of the issue. As a parent, we know that those legal issues exist, but basically, as a parent, you look at things from a common sense perspective. From the day of diagnosis, we have asked the school to go into Anna's particular classroom and classrooms of the same grade level that she attends, while Anna's not present, of course, and just give the kids a little rundown on what's happening. Those children have been with her since she was in preschool. They remember hanging out on the playground with her, talking with her, palling with her, being friends with her. And, you know, I'm in touch with another mom, mostly through our Facebook contact, and she talks to me about her daughter and how her daughter feels and how, you know, she misses Anna when Anna wasn't right there. She wants to be around Anna, but she's not sure how to communicate and play with her anymore. So we've always asked that the school do that education piece. They have done it. They have taken the opportunity to do a real nice job letting those kids know what works best to communicate with Anna, what doesn't. If Anna gets upset, to give her some space, and also that Anna's very loving and she may want to run up and throw her arms around them and play with them, and what they can do. And, you know, children are amazing, amazing individuals. You
Absolutely.
just have to explain things to them at a level that they can understand it. We've always asked that her prognosis be withheld from them so as not to burden first and second graders with that type of knowledge, but the knowledge that, yep, she is going to regress, that she has a disease, that, you know, she'll need more and more help as time goes on. And as she gets older, I'm sure that those students will know her prognosis. However, once you tell a child something and explain it to them, and you say these words, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, because this is how it is, And what is happening is what's happening, and it's okay to still be friends with her and talk with her and help her. And, I have to tell you, these kids have not ever left her side. I'll have her to a doctor's appointment. We'll come back to school. We'll be wheeling down the hallway. And we have kids that are not in her class that are leaning back on their chairs to see us as we're going by their door yelling, "Hi, Anna." So, the kids really get it. They want her there. They enjoy her. They accept her. They accept even when she has episodes where she might be yelling. She might be having a rough time. They accept her as she is because it's been explained to them about her disease, and they accept it.
All right.
Like I said, kids are amazing.
All right. So then, Myra, Justina, I don't know which one of you can answer this question. So I know that Justina's older brother has gone through the Whitehall schools. He's in the middle school now. He went through the elementary school. He went through the primary school. No problem. Totally accepting. So why do you feel that Whitehall District Schools has been so resistant and was so resistant to having Anna stay in her home school, that they took this kind of action?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that have gone on that are changing this scenario. One of them is pretty frankly, and this is all just guesswork on my part, but there have been some staff changing at the administrative level, and I think that made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
There is a new administrator. That person has taken that administrative position, I think, within the last 3 years. And she's not from the community. She came from outside of the community. Now, I don't know if that makes a difference always, but I think it can. The other thing that I think is different with Anna that I think Justina alluded to and that you even alluded to, Anna her progression has been a little more quickly paced than Gabe's has. So we've, I think, seen some more accelerated loss of skill,
right,
and some of those behavioral issues that evidence themselves a little earlier with her than with Gabe. And I think also part of it, and again, this is all just guesswork, but when they started to see this, and then have started to see a little bit of it with Gabe too, and probably are beginning to think to themselves, oh, we've got two kids who are going to go through this progress, and we've got to deal with this. And it is going to put a little bit of a strain emotionally, perhaps even resource-wise on this district. I don't think it's anything that they can't do. They already have everything in place, but it is going to take a little more thought and a little more energy, and it is going to take an emotional toll, not only on the kids, but on the adults. And I think, Justina's really right. The kids are probably going to deal with the emotional part of this much better than some of the adults are. They kind of roll with the punches a little bit, and they get that things are different, and that's just the way it is for some people. The adults, I think, are anticipating some of the hard times that are to come, and maybe they'll have a little bit bigger struggle with that.
You know what? But I think that, it is a perfect, as Susan was alluding to in her call, what is a better, authentic learning opportunity than giving the children the opportunity to see life? And I know that when I was out in Michigan and I was in the district, Justina had shared a wonderful story, and I hope you don't mind, Justina, if I share it, that one of Anna's friends, who, when they were in kindergarten, they were best of pals, and they were the BFFs, did everything together, had seen her at the park and was so excited just to be able to walk and hold her hand. And as they left the park, I guess told the mom, and if I get it wrong, help correct me and whatever, as they were talking about it on the way home, that she missed her friend. And she missed her friend, and even though Anna's body was still there, her brain always wasn't there. And people call Sanfilippo syndrome, childhood Alzheimer's. And I bet there is not an adult anywhere that is listening to this show that hasn't been affected by Alzheimer's and hasn't had a parent or a grandparent that has and doesn't have that. Don't say that same thing. My mom is physically here, but she's not my mom anymore. She's not the person that she was before. And so
Right.
the fact that, I mean, a 6 or 7-year-old can have that much depth and insight just amazed me with this. And it's not as if this is not something that other school districts are going. 1 in 70,000 children are born with this. So
Right.
it's rare, but not that rare.
Right.
When we think
You know,
about
Donna, I wanted to piggyback on that, if I may. I think one of the issues is that she not only has a disability, but that, you know, people in our country are not very comfortable with death.
Right.
It's kind of a subject that you avoid. You tend to find who your true friends are when you get handed something like this, because some of them, they want to help, but they just don't know how to help. They don't want to say the wrong thing. And one of the things about teaching children early on about this issue is that at some point in their lives, they're going to deal with a loved one, a mom, a dad, a grandma, somebody that has dementia. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have some level of experience, and maybe even I could go so far as to say some level of comfort with what that is and how you help somebody like that. Right. It's unusual that it happens in a school. So I understand that our schools aren't prepared immediately to deal with dementia in a child. We have taken the steps of going to dementia training. We've invited the school to go with us to dementia training. They took that step with us. They did go to a training with us. They're getting more information about how do you work with somebody who has dementia, because it's very different than working with a child with a disability. It's a different set of tools that you need to put in your tool bag, but you got to have those tools. So they're getting more familiar with it. They're using those techniques now. It is a challenge, but you know, once those children really get it and really understand it, they just come along so quickly. And you know, I'm not sure that what we're doing for Anna here is really for Anna. I don't know how many years she's going to have to enjoy this benefit of being able to be included in her community. But I think that we're doing this for other children, right, and other parents who have children with disabilities. We have a high rate of teenage suicide in our area, in the Whitehall Montague area, in our community. We also have a disproportionate amount of students with disabilities that we tend to take out of their community school and put them in a segregated setting. And I think subconsciously we're sending a message to our non-disabled peers that if they're different, or if they're not the same, or they look different, or whatever, that they maybe don't fit in here. And I would hope to bring some awareness to this community that those two things might be linked. Right. And that the more that we keep our community members with us, just as in a family, you don't cast out your child if they have a disability or if they are given, a death sentence, for lack of better words. You still keep them close. You still love them. Right. And you still go through it with them. Yeah. As a community and as a school, that's really what we should be doing. Is we should be pulling those people in even closer to us, learning from them, and learning how to be a kind, compassionate community. I think the message is even subconscious. I'm not even sure that those non-disabled peers are aware of that message that's been planted in their brain. They just notice that these kids with disabilities, well, I went to school when I was little with this kid, but as they became more disabled, I don't know what ever happened to them. They left. And, I think it's a subconscious message that we say as a society, and we can choose to give a different message. We can choose to give a message that no matter how tough it is, no matter how bad it is, we're going to roll up our sleeves, we're going to deal with it, we're going to get educated, we're going to put the tools in our toolbox that we need to make everybody feel welcomed and comfortable. And I think those children are the ones who are going to show us how to do it if we give them the opportunity.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think that's a piece that we need to go back to. So I know one of the reasons that the family really, had to fight for Anna to be able to be included and in is because we know in the research of dementia and in the research of Alzheimer's, keeping familiar surroundings, keeping familiar people in the environment actually helps elongate people's wellness, people's ability levels. And so for those that haven't been following the case, the school district had recommended to send her to a special school that's about 45 minutes away, where she would not have any of her general ed peers. She wouldn't be around her brothers and sisters who go to the same school, and she wouldn't be in the same similar environment. So, as special needs children and as parents of special needs, what are some of those tips that you could give schools to help them learn to embrace, to include our children, to not, when something's different or it's going to be hard, them actually want to send them away into special schools and away from the disabled peers, so others don't have to walk your journey? What are some things that they could do?
I think that the most important thing that they can do is look at the parents as a resource. If a parent is uncomfortable with that, then they have to look elsewhere for resources. But if you have a parent who is with this disabled child all of their life and they live with them and they know them best, so if they say, let us help you, let us come in, let us work together, I think there's a level of almost fear there that they're the educators and we're the parents, and so they should know automatically how to do this. They should be able to help you with this. Right. And in some cases, that is true. In a case like this where it's a rare genetic disorder, we as parents certainly don't expect them to know this disease like we know this disease. Right. But we want to be partners with them in our child's education. We want to help the school as much as we can. We do some shadowing. I have some people who work with us in our home with our children, and we send those people into school because they know the children really well, and we see where are the stumbling blocks at school. Right. What can we do? What things can we teach them? What things can we share with them? If you know anything about dementia, it's like hitting a moving target. What works one day doesn't always work the next day. So as we update frequently, they will get those tips. At home, we have a chalkboard, and every day we write something on there that's a tip for either Gabe or Anna and what's working. And then the next worker that comes in, or parent or sibling, can look at that and go, oh, that's working with Gabe today or Anna today. And so really those schools should look to parents as resources. But number two, if those schools put their energy into keeping those children as much as they put energy into removing them and going to due process and spending all those resources trying to remove a child, it's amazing what we can create when we put our energies to a positive motive rather than trying to just put it to a motive of removal. There's a lot of time and a lot of energy spent collecting data to remove a student rather than let's just do what works, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. And so it really has to be a top-down approach that says, we keep our kids here. We're going to do what it takes. Now, what resources do we need to put in place? I really feel as a parent that this was a fiscal mismanagement.
Absolutely.
That it cost the district so much money to fight this.
And am I understanding?
Rather than accept this child, and in the end, there we are. We're still here, and so I just think that we need to use our fiscal, just have more fiscal responsibility with what we do.
And can I add to that real quick? In the past 20 years of representing parents with disabilities or parents with students with disabilities, I've pretty quickly been able to pick out school districts where I don't ever have any cases. And the thing that's different in those school districts, no matter where they're located, it doesn't matter how much money they have, it doesn't matter, the attitude at the top makes a difference. But the other thing that makes the biggest difference is that they understand that we are dealing with this on a team basis.
Right.
It's a team decision, and it's not just giving it the words, but it's actually giving it the meaning behind that. If you treat families as part of a team and you're really surrounding that student and using all of your energy and resources together to support the student, you don't see a situation where there's a need for a due process hearing.
Right. Oh, and you know what? If we go back to the Winkleman versus Parma City Schools that everyone in Cleveland is well aware of, that they said, they right there said parents are the guardians of their children's educations. They're an integral member of the IEP team. And I think in this case, Whitehall District Schools just left the parents off the decision making because, in essence, they began the process way back last fall to get her out versus looking at ways to include her and keep her there and make things work. So
well, let me ask a question. Let me be the devil advocate. I'm not trained in this, but I'm sitting here and I've been talking with you and I know about Starfish. And so you're looking at the right for the free and appropriate public education. And I think in the orders it said that's what you're looking for. You were looking for Anna, not free and appropriate public child care. So what happens when you remove a child from the district and send them to a segregated school? What are they able to provide? Why? And I'm devil's advocate here. I'm not saying. Why does the district think that's better for the child? What do they get in that segregated environment?
Yeah, I think that their argument was, from a certain perspective, a good argument. You can understand how they arrived at it. They're saying, okay, here are, in this specialized school, these are people who only deal with kids with disabilities. So that makes them experts, per se, in dealing with kids with disabilities, even though there are no children like Anna or Gabe at that specialized school.
Right.
And there are very few children with regressive conditions. There are lots of kids with different kinds of disabilities. And I think that's it's a little bit of a hope on their part, and they use the word hope in their testimony. We hope that somebody at this specialized school will know better than we do how to deal with Anna. I think that they really had hope that they could find something better for Anna, and it certainly would have been quicker and easier for them if they could let those perceived experts take this case. That's going to be, like I said, it's going to have some hard points.
Well, and I think it's important to understand and for our viewers to know. Those that go and look it up. The school was a Wesley school, and the family, the older child went to the Wesley school. It's not as if, they have nothing against the specialized school. Their son had a wonderful experience there, that it really just was a matter of time and place and when's an appropriate time, and also the fact that a lot of the resources that she had, so a lot of the services that she was having direct service at the public school were being moved into consultative services at the specialized school. So she wasn't going to really get more. So I want to invite our callers to give us a call in, 216-578-1490, and join the conversation. All right, so Helen, I know you had a question about acceptance.
Well, I think it was coming kind of off of what I was saying. So what is the special part of us sending a student to a special school? But we've decided as a society that the exclusion and segregation is wrong. We've made it a moral issue, and now we've made it a legal issue. We made it, like we said at the top of the show, 30 years ago we made this a legal issue and said. So at this point, if we're having parents and adults and administrators who are having a hard time accepting some disabilities, certain disabilities, we know the kids are at a certain age are clean slate and don't have their mind already made up. But what do we need to be doing to keep kids in that mindset? You were saying Anna's classmates are still supportive, but you get to the middle school age, you get a little older, you can have questions. 6th grade can be challenging. 7th grade. So what do we need to be telling our kids, our youth, so that they can be more accepting?
Training our community
or training, how do we train folks
so they don't allow administrators to go rogue?
So we don't, and so that we're more acceptance is the norm instead of the maybe exception or what we have to push people to do.
Well, there's a double-edged sword here, and here's the thing. If you keep kids in their community and in their classrooms and in their neighborhood schools where they can grow up with their peers, then people are used to that. That is normal. And so then all through their lives, even when they get out into, the world, out into a job, people with disabilities are a part of that. And there's lots of objective evidence out there that shows that people benefit. Not people without disabilities benefit from being exposed to people with disabilities. The problem is that when we have a position in society that we want to give kids a better opportunity in a segregated environment, we're taking away that opportunity to know those people and to be used to those people who have different needs or different presentations. And we create this kind of a bad cycle where the less we know about people with disabilities, the more fear and misunderstanding we have. So we really need to reverse that. We really need to fight to keep our kids in their school districts, just like Justina said, because there is so much benefit not only to that child, but to the other people in that district. That benefit of showing them that these are just people. A person with a disability still has hopes and dreams and fears and desires, and they want to be a part of their community, and they have something to offer, even if it looks a little different than what a non-disabled person might have to offer.
Right, and they have. So, all right, Myra.
And to piggyback on that for a minute, I've got just a little snippet to piggyback on that. What we used to do is we did always segregate disabled kids from non-disabled kids, and then magically at age 18 we put them all back in the same community, in the same society, and we somehow expected them to get along.
You mean you couldn't find the island of disability?
No. And so, keeping them together from a young age forward, it just makes sense. And back to that parent's perspective, it's just common sense. It's just what you do. We stopped the segregation years ago, like the caller said, and it just, it's what we need to get back to. And I did want to add here that 90% of the people that work with Anna or Gabe at Whitehall District Schools are doing an amazing job. They work hard to include her. They've accepted her. It really is a top administration issue. And then when those orders come down, people feel obliged to take those orders and not do what they feel is right. We have great relationships with our children's aides at school, their teachers at school, their therapists at school, and they're doing a fantastic job. And we have never for a moment forgotten to tell them that. We tell them that we think they're doing a fantastic job.
And see, Justina, I think that's really important that everybody hears, because I think oftentimes they think it's the teachers or the aides and the people working on the ground that have the issue. And I think it's important to know it's not oftentimes. I mean, it really is a top-down. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to, Myra, you've gone through this case. It's been painful with the family. I'm sure that the district and the community are going to have to heal. Our hope is that the ruling in this case will help keep other school districts and other parents from having to go down this fight. Can you provide some of our parents some strategies to help them avoid due process?
Sure. A couple of things. I think, first of all, always be a problem solver and a team member with your school district if you can. I mean, be there as the Bernhardts did with information and resources to support them. Be willing to sit at the table and problem solve with them. Always also document the efforts that you are taking, and I think that gets to be important too, so that you've got a record later that you can look at, okay, here's what we tried, here's what we didn't try, and then in case things break down, of course, as well, you've got that record.
Right.
But starting first and foremost as problem solvers and trying to make sure that there's a feeling that you're on the same team, that you are working together. That means you're going to have a little give and take on both sides. So parents can't go into an educational dispute or an educational program meeting where there are disagreements and expect that every single one of their hopes and wishes is going to be granted. I always advise parents to have a list. When you go into an IEP meeting, be prepared with evidence and information. Bring your experts with you. But have a list of things that you want for your child and then have part of that list kind of designated as things that are non-negotiable things. I have to have these things. Know that you may have to negotiate on some of those things that are not negotiable, or that are negotiable, but have some items in mind that I can't negotiate on these items, and these are things that I have to make sure that I get no matter what.
Right. And be able to push that forward with it.
Absolutely. And don't take no for an answer. I mean, be as obliging and as pleasant as you can be, but you have to be a fierce advocate for your child, and that means don't take no for an answer. A lot of times people, when someone says, no, we can't do that, they say, oh, okay. That's not necessarily the right answer.
Right.
Well, let's try it this way, or why can we not try it a different way? Let's think about how we can do this. Let's problem solve together as a team.
Well, and I know that as an ed consultant, that's one of my first questions I always ask is why, and then how about, and being able to look at it that way. So, what do you think? Is this ruling going to help other families of children with Sanfilippo syndrome who the school districts may decide to take the INDRU and actually misuse it? Because I think it's a misuse of it, in trying to get more students out of districts? Or do you think this is going to help the districts to stop, think, and maybe go, maybe we need to work more collaboratively?
I think pretty clearly this will have a very good impact. It sets a very good precedent for students with degenerative conditions of any kind.
Excellent.
So certainly Sanfilippo falls in that category. Beyond that, I can't say that it's going to do a lot, but I can very with confidence say that students with degenerative conditions like Sanfilippo will be able to use this case to make a case with their districts, to have their administrators stop and think, and let's find a different route here.
Yeah.
I have another question, though, too, because I feel like the school districts are probably flying on a wing and a prayer. If we don't have a student that has a disability or need an accommodation, then we're okay. When we have a student, then we have to kind of scramble, or in some cases they have to scramble. Can parents check out their district? Is there any way to understand whether your district is ready and able to deal with a child? I mean, what are the best ways you could check out your district and understand? What are those questions parents should be asking early on?
Well, I think having a good relationship with your school administration and your school board and making sure that they are understanding what's going on with their community, with the people that are there. I mean, schools are getting to be a more and more competitive setting.
Yep.
We have a lot of private and charter schools out there. We have a lot of options for parents. So I think that as the consumer, you have some leverage. And so get up at those school board meetings and meet with your superintendents and your school administrators and make sure that they understand, here's what's important to me
And
as a
speak out.
consumer. And hopefully you can get other parents to do the same thing.
Absolutely. So, Justina and Myra, I'm amazed at how fast an hour goes on the radio, I got to tell you. So let me ask you, Justina, I know that Lance wrote a fabulous poem. Would you be willing to share that with our listeners?
I will. And I'll give you just a brief background on it. This poem was written about our oldest son. He's 27 now. It was written, probably 25 years ago when he was about 2 years old. And I really feel like it was sort of divinely inspired because my husband does not write poetry typically, and this just came to him. And just so the listeners know, that older son who's 27 that has cerebral palsy with the same school district, they were not going to allow him in kindergarten. We had to exercise our due process rights back then. We did settle. He did get allowed into kindergarten, and since that, we've seen several other children in wheelchairs just come forth, and they're in our schools now. And so we really felt like that was maybe precedent setting. Right. So the reason I give you that background is because the poem is going to allude to that only 25 years ago.
All right.
So the poem is from my husband, Lance Bernhardt. It's entitled My Son. He sits supported by foam and steel, watching intently as the children play. He cannot join them, not today. He laughs and cries like every man riding the emotional tide. He cannot hide. He loves and is loved. He touches lives, sharing his life with those who care. He was innocent. Life is not fair. He has a purpose. There is a meaning, reaching beyond the senses. He came to take down fences. He has a heart, a mind so pure, shining like the morning sun. He is my son. He is my son. He is a blessing to my world, teaching things I could not know. He is flesh and blood and bone, and he is soul. He does not stand alone, this child, showing there are many more. He came to open the door. He knows in time this will all end. Waiting for the day he too will play.
Thank you so much, Justina.
That's
and you know
beautiful.
what?
That's really beautiful.
We need to end there, and I want to just say from the bottom of our heart, from all families of children that have disabled children and have to fight every day for their children, thank you.
Thank you.
So, happy holidays, and everyone, Starfish Speaks will be back in the new year, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
I alone know me. Something of believing up in everything. Tell me you agree. Moving like a dancer in a perfect dream. Take my time. Wait with you. Make it last. Keep it true. I love her. Love me too. I alone know me. Something